Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, coming at you live every Wednesday, direct on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. This is Scotland's #1 politics and chat from a pro-UK perspective. I'm here tonight with my co-hosts Mary Devlin and Mark Zegveldt. Mark, what have you got for us tonight, Mary? Actually.
Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about Humza Yousaf embarrassing himself at COP28 in Dubai.
Okay, and Mark, what have you got for us this evening?
The blame game of blaming Westminster for every issue that happens in Scotland and the consequences of that.
That will keep us here all night. And we'll all be discussing education in Scotland and perhaps maybe a little talk about a juicy scandal.
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Right, we're all back with all that and much more in just a few seconds. Right, welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's #1. Oh, another fun-filled week in Scottish politics, as it says
Very
down
apt.
there. Our aim is a better Scotland, a thriving Scotland, without the toxic nationalism that is strangling this country's potential. Hello to everyone who is putting their messages down the bottom. First of all, a huge thank you to everyone who has donated to our Sack Matheson Billboard's crowdfunder, which, if looking at it right here, is at £1,968. So we just need a little bit more to get it over the £2,000. How much does that make? Can you calculate it? I don't know.
What did you say? Sorry, I was watching.
Well, okay, it's £32 basically.
£32.
So we basically just need £32 so we can get Mary calling up the billboard companies tomorrow.
Yeah, if someone can just help us get to that target, I will book those billboards tomorrow.
Right, okay, and we can send a message that lying to the public is just not acceptable, really, in today's Scotland. It's about time. The thing is, why are the opposition not doing it? We have to do it ourselves, but we will do it ourselves. Anyway, thank you very much there, Sean. Okay, also, you can, if you want to donate, you can go to our social media where the links are on there, or go to donorbox.com, sack-matheson-billboards. So do that, or you can send us a message here. We'll put it up as well. And always, as always, a huge thanks to our friends at UK Union Voice United Against Separation pages who support the show every week, where many of you are watching as well.
And of course, I'll be handling all your comments tonight, so please keep them short and snappy, and I will try to get as many up on screen as I can.
Yes, and please do remember, caring is sharing. No, sharing is caring. Which #1 thing you can do right now, like the show, please. That will get us up in the algorithm, and great things will happen to us all. All right. Okay, plus, this is an ideal time. Santa's elves have been working in the Majority shop, and they've been saying, why, please buy our great Majority merchandise here. If you go to the Majority site, you will see this amazing stuff. For example, you can get the You're My Favorite Zoomer t-shirt, which I'm clicking on but won't actually appear. Okay, here it comes. You're My Favorite Zoomer. What about that?
What a great Christmas present that would be, isn't it?
Yes, that would be amazing.
Who wouldn't like to find that in their stocking on Christmas morning?
Exactly. Of course, they have the infamous, they may take our lives, but they will never take our camper vans t-shirt as well. And many others, all available at this store. So please do go and have a look at that and help the elves. That's all I can say.
Keep them in a job.
That's right.
We don't want unemployed elves.
Okay, so that Mary mentioned in comments. Thank you for bringing those in. We've got a lot to talk about on tonight's show, so we will be back in just a second. Right, well, there's been huge amounts of earth-shattering news just this afternoon. We have to start with the most important news of the day, of course. Nicola Sturgeon is having trouble writing her memoir. She says it's going slowly, I think I'm writing a book the way I would approach writing a speech, and it's completely different. But I was reading this and I was thinking, does anyone actually remember any one of Sturgeon's speeches? They're so stunning and memorable.
I detest Tories.
Well, that's true. That was an important thing there. And also, she did say that her quote was that she hated Sturgeon. No, not hated Sturgeon. Yeah, she said Margaret Thatcher was the motivation for my entire political career. I hated everything she stood for. That's two quotes. But I mean, has she ever come up with any other quotes? We shall fight them on the beaches. We do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. Just a little bit misquoted. Or any other misquoted or perfectly quoted quote. What has Nicola Sturgeon ever done for us? Mark, how are you tonight,
I'm great, thanks. I'm great. Did she even write long speeches? So,
well, the implication is there that she did write them, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think the number of spads that she had and that she hired, I think that says everything. So, what was she paying them for? If she was doing everything and writing her own speeches. No.
Well, yes.
Maybe she's got a little intern round. She just lives round the corner from us, so maybe there's a little intern tucked away in her house and coming up with.
She needs someone to remember, so she can remember what she's her life, because we know what kind of memory she's got and how bad it is.
That's right.
I don't recall is her. That's perhaps what the memoir should be called. I don't recall a 250-page blank. 250 blank pages.
Redacted.
Yes,
that's what should be called.
Yes, exactly. This is the thing. I mean, how hard is it to remember when you can't remember anything? I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. Anyway, so I think that's one of the things that's a bit interesting, is that she's, to some people, that she's almost like a mythic figure, but I think actually, if she's not been able to do anything rhetorically, really. There's nothing you can remember. There's no "we will storm Westminster and break down the doors," or I could come up with 100 of them quite easily, and they wouldn't even sound like Braveheart quotes. They could be decent, but nothing there at all. So I actually think that she's actually quite unimaginative and really boring. And I've always thought this, that some people would try and put all this extra airs onto her and so on, but I think she's really grey. I mean, I suppose that's a way of putting it.
Vanilla is what people say.
Oh, vanilla.
Beige or vanilla.
Yeah. Well, do you think that too, Mary?
Oh yeah. I mean, she just seems very unimaginative. Or maybe we should say Magnolia is the Magnolia of politics.
Well, I don't think she had any kind of substance, did she? She had no kind of substance. So it was all kind of one-liners and baby boxes, and I've won elections. I've won all these elections.
A lot of snark, perhaps, and condescending talk.
A lot of the things that she did say, for example, Catherine's put up judging me on education, which we are going to be talking about in detail.
Yes,
but a lot of the things that she did say, she's probably trying to hide from now anyway.
Yeah, well, that's very true. It's, how I wasn't involved in any of this stuff at all.
I didn't say these things.
Right. She had the cheek to say, my life ran parallel to, I think I can say this without hyperbole or fear of contradiction, the most momentous period in Scottish history. Well, that is perhaps up for debate. I've been a participant in that. I don't think I'm flattering myself to say too much that I've contributed to some of the historic nature of what's happened in recent times. But nevertheless, I've been a participant, a front row observer of stuff that I wasn't participating in. The book will be released in 2025. Whether she'll be charged by the branch form police before then is a different matter. Now, let's talk a little bit. Sturgeon's legacy. Mark, as you say, mentioned, is it the baby box?
Being the first leader to be arrested and interviewed as a suspect in a criminal investigation.
Yes,
that says everything to me.
Yes, that is a big one, certainly. Whether later to be proven innocent or guilty, still the arrest itself through much chaos. Perhaps also the legacy of sending men with men with penises, women with penises into female jails is also part of that legacy. As someone says, keep the willy in Barlinnie. But we'll move on. We will talk now about her legacy and that she asked to be judged on, which was, of course, education. Remember the days long ago when Scots boasted about having the best education system in the world.
Yep.
What happened to that? Well, anyway.
The SNP?
Well, very good, Mary. Well, yesterday it was revealed that I'm going to try to find the bit here. Yesterday it was revealed that the Programme for International Student Assessment, which is called PISA, and that's an organisation that measures educational standards worldwide. They had released a report, and nearly 70,000 students from 81 countries took part in the study, including 3,300 pupils from across 117 schools in Scotland. Quite a big survey. Anyway, well, that's fancy.
That was Rita taking up too much space, Rita.
The math. The report shows a long-term decline in Scotland's performance in reading, maths and science. Within the UK's 4 devolved education systems, England was the highest achiever in all the subjects. Wales is the lowest performing, and Scotland was the worst. And it's been declining since 2000. In 2000, the score was 526, and now it is 493. So a downward trend for 15 years. And in terms of world, where we are in the world, that's about average for most OECD countries. But the thing here is that in all cases, the Scotland scores were worse than England. So what does that tell you about devolution? Devolution was supposed to improve the lives of Scots. And one of the main areas, 2 main areas, I suppose, health, education, economy, 3 main areas, many more, all seem to be in terminal decline. But let's hear Jenny Gilruth, who is the Education Minister and who's been paid £110,000 a year. Let's have a listen to what she has to say about it all.
These are reports and findings for Scotland.
These are very challenging, but Scotland's performance...
They're the worst ever. They're not just challenging, they're the worst ever.
Scotland's performance in PISA mirrors those of similar countries, and it's important to say that.
But comparing Scotland past and previous with now,
all right, we'll have to leave that.
What did Jenny say, Mark?
Yes, but Scotland's downward trajectory in that respect mirrors those of...
No, she's stuck. That's a bit weird. Well, she didn't say very much. Basically, she tried to blame the whole thing on COVID.
And teachers.
And teachers. Well, she was a teacher herself, right? Mark, did you watch that clip?
I did. Yes, I did. And she blamed it on COVID. She blamed it on the teachers. She blamed it on the head teachers. She said she was going to improve everything. And when asked how's that going to happen, she couldn't answer.
Yes, that's right. The main part of the clip is when they said we're going to improve, and Colin, is it? I think there says, well, what's the target then? What actual numbers do you have you want to get to? Oh, we don't have that. It's like, well, you've got to have a dream to make a dream come true, as the song goes. You've got to have a target to make a target come true. So why are they not doing that? Anyone should be saying, like, yes, our target is to up another 5 points next year and be the best in the UK.
Well, when you've come from near the top and then you end up below halfway, and then you say, well, we're going to improve things. The statistics show they haven't improved. They haven't improved anything. In fact, they've gone backwards. They changed what was a winning from what was one of the leading educational systems in the world, and they changed it all for no reason. The curriculum for no reason, and it's instead of improving it, it's made it worse. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense. And 1 in 5 children leave primary school illiterate. 1 in 5.
That's shocking.
That's a shocking statistic that I found earlier when this report came out. I was reading it. 1 in 5 primary school children leave illiterate in Scotland.
Well, putting aside somewhat cynical arguments that the Scottish Parliament wants or the SNP want a dumbed down population. I think that parents in general don't want that. So why is this? There was something in the report about teacher numbers not being enough teacher numbers. So that's obviously in direct remit of the government. And then also mobile phone use in classes, which is a part for classroom discipline and so on as well.
Well, the lack of teachers is to do with classroom discipline as well. I mean, teachers are being assaulted in classes.
Classrooms.
And their lives are being made a misery by... There's nothing that teachers can do when pupils decide to be completely disruptive in a classroom.
Right.
I mean, even saying, we'll send you to the headmaster, it's like nothing happens. So there is absolutely no discipline in the classes, and the violence against teachers is increasing. So people don't want to be teachers anymore.
And there's a big issue, because I got contacted by a head teacher, and there's a big issue with drugs in school, in schools.
Yeah.
That is a big thing that needs sorting.
Yeah. Now they're putting a lot of spin on it, because I read the it wasn't a headline, but it was in the thing. It said that Scotland was better than 24 other countries. Well, there was actually 81 countries in the study, so they were 57th out of 81, and they're trying to spin that as some kind of good results. But we were better than 24.
Well, they've just been going down all the time. UK education in general is going down. That's a problem, but the issue
again, I think it's a lot to do with the lack of discipline in classrooms.
I think with England
and the comprehensive system.
With England, they went up, but during COVID years, they went down a little bit more.
Right.
But I think every country went down a bit during COVID times because of the issues. But in general, England have been going up the charts. I think they rose quite a few places last time. I think they got ranked 51 points or something, which is above average in the table. So I think England is doing quite a bit better. But like you say, I still think the whole of the UK do need to change and start, because education is a cornerstone to any developing any nation that for the economy. You need good education.
Of course.
Well, that's why Scotland why Scotland has got the most inventors of any country in the world.
Yeah, but that was, to be honest, that was a long time ago. And this is the thing.
I know, but it's because we had a good education system.
Yes, well, I read this actually. The part of the reason Scotland got its reputation for quality education was in 1708. The writer Daniel Defoe praised it, writing that even the poorest people have their children taught and instructed, in contrast to England's dark villages full of ignorance. Now it seems that Scotland's villages, towns, cities are full of ignorance instead. Is there a case to scrap? Well, of course, case to scrap devolution, but if the oversight is so bad, then surely we should just go. If England is doing so much better, let's just go back, join with them. I've always thought that. Why do we have a separate system entirely? It's a pain in the behind for a start. It means that you'll always immediately look down if you go for a job in England. So why? I mean, what do you think there should be? Just be one system across the entire UK, Mark?
I think. No, not necessarily. No, but I do think politicians need to get out of it and leave the teaching and the curriculum to the experts and the teachers, because we've seen in Scotland. Why change the system that was successful for decades? Why change that? And that was done by politicians interfering. And I do think as well, Stonewall have had a big issue, and I think that's happened throughout UK. That Stonewall have had too much influence in the schools.
Well, it's like social engineering rather than teaching them to be social engineers rather than to be actual engineers in that sense. Well, I don't know. I'm a fan of harmonisation, of course. I think when you look at failure, and especially failure of devolution 25 years later, trying to say, is this Is this working? What is the effect here? Is there really a good reason to have a separate system? I'm not saying that the teaching is all going to be in every class is going to be Britain is great, all this type of thing. And of course, you'll have your regional history and your so on. But the administration of the education system, I think, it just can't be left in the hands of these utter losers like Jenny Gilruth, basically, who don't have a clue. They don't care really about it at all, and they don't have the structures behind them to make it care. I think don't have a civil service or anything like that.
The budget cuts as well.
Well, of course, that's a big effect.
In education is having a huge effect.
So Sturgeon asked to be judged on education, and perhaps her memoir should really be entitled FAIL. Had to check that there. In case I got it wrong. Right, okay. Let me see where we're at. Okay, please, if you do like the show, hit that like button. We need that. Oh, and if you can, please subscribe. We're closing in on 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is not bad for this type of show. So, but everything helps, so we could get a little bit more. Would be wonderful. In a moment, Mary's going to talk about Kate Forbes, so we'll be back in just a second. Right,
in
Mary.
Other breaking news today, Kate Forbes is demanding that the SNP drop the Butte House agreement with the Greens. Yes. We've been campaigning on this show every single week.
You have, particularly.
Well, I in particular, that was our aim for the year, was to highlight all the failures of the Greens. And it looks like we might have been getting some success on that. Kate Forbes is urging the SNP to axe the Butte House agreement and ditch the Scottish Greens in order to save the SNP from disaster. It's a bombshell intervention from Kate Forbes and piles huge pressure on Humza Yousaf. She even called on him to operate a minority government.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's pushing policies that are unpopular with the public just to appease the Scottish Greens. Things that we've talked about on the show. I mean, there are so many of them, but for example, the highly protected marine areas, the deposit return scheme,
yes.
Banning gas boilers and replacing them with stupid heat pump systems, all the rent freezes, rent controls, and so on. I mean, every sector in Scotland, just about, in transport, the A9, oil and gas, everywhere. Basically, the green policies have been an absolute disaster. And at last, Kate Forbes and some other SNP bigwits, is that the word? Bigwigs. No, there's no bigwits in the SNP. There might be bigwigs. They're finally starting to recognise what a disaster these green policies are. So Kate Forbes, as we know, was the former finance secretary. She said, "We were elected on an SNP manifesto, not a Green Party manifesto."
Oh, that's very true.
Or the Butte House Agreement. Nearly all the issues that have lost us support in the last year are found in the Butte House Agreement and not in the SNP manifesto. We've been telling you that for at least a year, or more than a year, ever since we've been doing the show, in fact. So she has become the most high-profile SNP MSP to make the demand, but she kind of follows in the footsteps of veteran Fergus Ewing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's others in the Holyrood group who are also understood to be frustrated about the actions of the Greens. So she's actually calling for the Butte House Agreement to be reviewed. And she kind of stopped short of demanding that it be completely scrapped.
Really?
She's just being polite, I think.
Yes.
But I think that what she is actually asking for is for it to be scrapped.
Right. Well, the Greens don't like her anyway because, you know, she's got these unusual religious views, or it's not necessarily that impinge on their sexual plans.
Sexual deviances.
Well, Kate Forbes said that sex outside marriage is something that she doesn't go for,
right,
as well, and that's not just for herself. I think that's for anyone. So that is that's a bit of an unusual position, so to speak. Anyway, so I mean, you've got two. You basically, to my mind, many people are saying, "All right, well, okay, go Kate," and all this type of stuff. But to my mind, you've got two kind of sides that are both quite unappealing. Really, you've got this quite conservative, very conservative side in Kate Forbes, and God knows what that would look like if it actually became a government.
What's that program we used to watch on TV? The one about the women.
Prisoner Cell Block H?
No. The Handmaiden or something.
Oh yes, the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah,
that's right.
like that.
Yes, it could end like that. You know, all the women have to go around into the hoods and all that type of stuff, and look mopey all the time. But but on the other side, we've got this kind of super ultra progressive thing here, which may be to some extent a mask for Humza Yousaf's. His own religion's conservatism as well. So it's all very.
I find the timing quite interesting.
Why is that, Mark?
Well, today with the court case coming out and a lot of other things coming out, that she decided to do this now. It's about time someone stood up with Fergus Ewing, because he's been doing it on his own. But there has been 11 rebels on the backbenches of the SNP, and the talk is that they've been feeding Fergus and allowing Fergus to be the mouthpiece for these 11 in Parliament and standing up against the Greens and the policies. So now he's looks like he's starting to be backed up by Kate Forbes as well. So I think that'll strike home quite a bit, that there's two of them now starting to make rumblings about the Greens. But if I personally, they're killing Scotland, the Greens, and they are killing the SNP, and long may that last. But if I was one of the ones talking to Humza or advising Humza, I would have told him when he became First Minister, get rid of them Greens, because everybody could see that they were doing more harm to the government than they were doing good. And
yes, but of course, I mean, if Kate Forbes actually were to become the leader, then they would be open to attack on their social conservatism, which would be out of step, I think, with most UK parties. And also they'd lose the Greens, so then they'd be open to vote of no confidences. And they wouldn't be able to rely on the Greens at all, in fact, which is the difference. Humza Yousaf, even if you get rid of the Butte House Agreement, he could probably still rely on having the support of the Greens anyway. But I don't think Kate Forbes could do that, really.
I'm not 100% sure that she's going to be the one that's going to go for the first, be challenging Humza for First Minister.
Right.
I think she's still hurt and quite badly by the last time, and the attacks from within the party when she went for leadership last time. I still think that she's still scarred by that. So I'm not convinced that she's going to be the one to challenge him.
Right. And also Fergus Ewing and Kate Forbes are what we used to call Tartan Tories. Basically, there's the only difference between them and many Tories is just they simply want independence. And we just saw actually recently that lady who moved, I think was she a councillor or MP? No, she was an MP, wasn't she? She moved to the Tories. So it shows that type of thing is going on there, and that they try and hide that, to quite a big extent, and say this isn't our party. Our party's all super progressive, woke, and all this type of stuff. But a good chunk of it is really conservative people. If you listen, actually, if you follow some accounts, of course there's a hardcore socialist bunch, but even people like Wings Over Scotland, sometimes I'm reading that and thinking, well, what's the difference here between? There's very little difference here between what he's thinking and, say, a liberal conservative or a Lib Dem, and of course he was a Lib Dem to begin with. So this independence issue being in the way there. Right. Okay. Very good. We're going to be back in a second. We're going to talk about another ruling against the Scottish government.
More breaking news.
There's a lot going on today, wasn't there? I need to find my way back to my wee page, though. All right, here we go. All right. Because I try and handle the chats when it's Mary's section, and it's not that easy. So, but clap for Mary for doing the chats. They're Mary. It's
I'll take over again.
Is it? Are you doing this section?
Well, I can introduce it if you like.
Right, okay,
so, sure. More breaking news: the Scottish Government had tried to reject an FOI request from a member of the public back in 2021 by claiming that the Scottish Government didn't hold the relevant details, and hold seemed to be the pertinent word today. But the judges have ruled against the Scottish Government after it tried to prevent the publication of the details of the Hamilton inquiry into whether Sturgeon had broken the ministerial code. So, as we all remember, when the Hamilton's report was released, it was heavily redacted. Hamilton said he was deeply frustrated about the redactions when it was published, and that he wanted more information to be made public to give the context. He warned the redacted report could give an incomplete and even at times misleading version of events. But when the Freedom of Information request was made for the written evidence that Hamilton had used to compile his report, the Scottish Government tried to argue that it didn't hold the information.
Yeah, it just didn't have it.
Well, it held and hold, and it was a bit like Bill Clinton with I did not have sex with that woman or whatever.
I didn't inhale. Is that thing? That's the
and
one.
That as well.
Yes.
So the FOI requester then complained to the Information Commissioner and won. But the Scottish Government appealed against it. And so that's why today they were all in the Court of Session in Edinburgh, where the Court of Session rejected that argument. They basically only took a couple of minutes to say that the Scottish Government did actually hold the information.
That's right. And I've got this, but it'll take me a wee second to see if it will actually play. I don't know. Will it actually play this time? Right, let's give it a go. Right. So I get a couple of seconds and then coming in, first of all.
The court is grateful to Council for their clear submissions on this matter, and we've also had the opportunity of considering the written arguments which have been presented together with the remaining papers over the last few days. We will give reasons for our decision in writing in early course, but in short, the court is satisfied that the information involved was held by the Scottish ministers in terms of the statute, and we will therefore refuse this appeal. Obviously, the Scottish ministers will wish to consider whether any exemptions apply to any of the information which is subsequently made available.
Right. Well, that's like, I think that's the court equivalent of a boot in the balls, basically, saying get out of here and get back and do.
Stop your nonsense.
Yes, exactly. Mark, you must have some things to say about this.
Yeah, it was interesting that MP David Daviess was in court today, listening to the results of that, and he tweeted a lengthy thread, and it was quite damning of the Scottish government. But it just shows you the secrecy that this government and the lengths it will go to hide information from the public. How many court cases is that now they've taken, and they've lost every one. So it just shows you, and the amount of money that it's been wasted, because that decision today took literally 2 minutes for them to make. I don't think they left the chamber.
I know, they just went round
they just looked at each other and went, well, yeah. They'd already, the judge said, we've read the reports sent in, and they knew from them reports what their decision was going to be. Mm-hmm. It was quite another devastating loss for them. And this is costing the taxpayers valuable money that can be used in different, for different things.
Of course.
And just an open.
They're all crying about a shortage of money, aren't they?
Yeah, and Humza keeps shouting, "We're going to be the open and transparent government. We're going to be the most open and transparent of any government." Doesn't show it, does it? It's not. Again, he's been shown up to be a liar.
This David Daviess thing's quite interesting, because if you remember back to the days of when this was in the news, he would use his parliamentary privilege to talk about the case in the UK Parliament. Now, you're allowed to talk, you're allowed to say anything pretty much in there without fear of libel, right? Or it's because it's the highest place for discussion of any topic in the land. So it means that you can discuss even stuff that would be contempt of court in other cases. You can't actually do that in the Scottish Parliament. For some reason, not really sure why they decided to do that. So that means that the Scottish Parliament can't really discuss this issue, this Salmond issue, in any detail. And that's what it's all about here. The person who put the Freedom of Information request in wants to see the written evidence the Hamilton inquiry, Hamilton took in. And in revealing that, they're hoping to expose malfeasance against, or misfeasance, as he said, against Salmond. But the thing that I find a bit strange about it, because I read through Hamilton's letter just before this, the show here, and this is actually Hamilton's letter. Anyone can read it. And basically, and that's the one where he says he was frustrated and so on. But he says, I am deeply frustrated that applicable court orders will have the effect of preventing the full publication of a report. But what will change? Any evidence that will be released will also have to blank out, redact the names of the accusers, and also have to ensure that there's no jigsaw identification as well. So, I mean, all you're going to end up with is this evidence going to come out just with black lines all over it, right?
The judge did say that the Scottish government still had the right to redact certain information. Plus, they could also, if they ask a different question, to have it stopped again, they could go down that route. So this could end up back in court if the Scottish government decide that they still want to withhold it, but they do it in a different way than they've tried this time.
Yeah, and it also goes back to this strange issue, I think we talked about this last week, is that the accusers, who Alex Salmond, of course, was found not guilty and not proven in one charge of, I think, the 9 charges. Yet the accusers still get anonymity. But I don't understand that, because if there's no criminal act, then why should they still have anonymity? And especially the ones that were just like touch my hair and touch my bottom, stuff like that, and try to say that was sexual assault. Why on earth do those people have anonymity for that? That's not... I don't think that meets the standard of sexual assault, and the court decided it did meet the standard of sexual assault. So why do these people still have anonymity? I think there should be a legal challenge to that, and perhaps that might come out in this perjury thing that's coming up.
The one thing I find interesting is the longer that the government, the Scottish government, hide this and keep taking it to court or keep doing the redactions, the more people are going to think, what are they hiding? What are they trying to hide? Instead of just releasing it and saying, well, let it go, get a news story out of it and it'll blow over or whatever. They're carrying this on, and people are starting to think, well, it must be really serious what they're hiding.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. They're hiding something. That's the feeling. Of course, you're hiding. No smoke without fire. Let it go, as the song goes. Right, Mark, you're going to be up next with we're going to be talking about the blame culture of Westminster. Which, as I said, we could go on about that all night. But let's see what you've got to say on that in just a few seconds. Right, there we go, Mark. Up you go.
Yeah, the blame culture of Scottish politics over the last 16 years, and it's always Westminster's fault. Everything's Westminster's fault, and it's got to the point now where we've seen a generation of politicians grow up blaming Westminster for everything, and there's no accountability at all in Scottish politics or in the Parliament of Scottish politics. There's no accountability. There's not one person that's took account. You take Lorna Slater, for instance, with a bottle scheme. It was her scheme. She led the scheme. She got in touch. She did all the groundwork for that scheme. She did everything for that scheme, apparently.
Right.
and when it got to the end, and businesses contacted the Scottish government and said, this is not workable. It is not workable. All of a sudden, it switched around and it started, well, the UK government have stopped this, which they didn't. The UK government have introduced this and we're not allowed to do it now. And it became Westminster's fault and not Lorna Slater's, to the point where she had a vote of no confidence in Parliament, and she won it, and she even got praised by MSPs from SNP and the Greens, all praised her, all said she did a great job, and that when it cost the country, literally cost the country billions of pounds.
And
hundreds
of millions anyway.
Oh, a lot of millions.
Yeah, and it's really, no one's going to learn anything in Scottish politics if they don't take accountability. We're never going to move forward, and we're never going to have a system where as the favourite saying, lessons will be learnt. Sturgeon used to say that often. Right. Well, what lessons are going to get learnt if you continuously blame another parliament for your issues? We might as well close down Holyrood, because that's costing us billions of pounds. You might as well close it down if Westminster is going to get blamed for everything. They might as well be in control of Scotland if they're going to be blamed for everything.
Right, that's a good point. That is a good point. Now, I noticed an interesting point here from Dale Flower, who's one of our followers, and he said in this one here, where of course the Westminster's immigration policies will damage Scotland's NHS. He says, here we go again. Westminster doesn't have policies. It's the government that has policies. Governments change. This is a blatant attempt to suggest a difference of opinion over policy is, in fact, a fundamental difference between people living on different sides of a border. And I think that's a good point, because that's one of the reasons I hadn't really thought about that before, and why they were saying they always use Westminster, because that means the whole thing, Westminster, the whole thing is corrupt. Oh, it doesn't matter if Labour or the Tories are in. Yeah. And you see these contortions that SNP followers in the media, and of course on social media as well, are getting into to try and blame Labour for everything under the sun, when if Scottish nationalism didn't exist, they would be like, of course, this is great, of course we're absolutely behind everything here and we're on the winning side. And these contortions. But I've always said since the beginning of this, since we started the majority, the basic thing is nationalism is deflection. Right, that's what it is. But its very nature is deflection. It's always about blaming someone else for your problems, taking credit for stuff that wasn't yours in the first place, and then blaming other people. And you can see it in everything. And is it any surprise if they're blaming Westminster all the time that that it just goes through the whole society almost?
We've got a budget coming up, and they've had an emergency meeting, which is very rare, the Scottish government, on this budget, because it's going to be some serious cuts to public services in the budget. And this meeting is just about, and I'll guarantee this, they'll come out and every single one of them will have the same wording, and it'll be how Westminster is at fault for having to make cuts. They've already started saying that the autumn budget from the UK government is why they're having to make cuts, when in fact I think it's just over 500 million extra money to Scotland. But apparently that's not what they're saying, and they're stating that it's because of that autumn budget we have to find serious cuts in this budget, when in fact it's 16 years of mismanagement and corruption that's got to the point now where we're losing police officers, education is dropping, where the health service is in disarray, and all because of this SNP government, and all because of the cuts that they've brought in over the SNP austerity. That's what I call it. And that's exactly what it is.
Well, I think it's not in their nature, of course, but they're so used to blaming everyone else that it's become tiresome, I think. And I think that's why he brought it up, because it's like, come on, move, take some blame, say, look, we failed. And then but they can't do that. It's always someone else. A big boy did it and ran away. There's never a better expression for what they have done to Scotland. And thanks for bringing in all your comments there. Do try and read as many as we can throughout the show. Please remember, Santa's elves are busy working on majority t-shirts right now. You can go and get that, and even a mouse mat, or an Abolish Holyrood t-shirt, or an amazing You're My Favourite Zoomer t-shirt, just from the show. And also, I did want to mention, while you're on the Majority website, there is a new article by Stephen Bailey, which is called Reasons to be Cheerful, which is all about how polling is showing that the various regions of the UK are rejecting separatism. So please do have a read of that. He's a good writer, and we're very happy to have him on there. I noticed he was watching the show earlier on as well. So good to give him a little shout. Next up, Mary's going to talk about Humza gate crashing, COP28. Okay, it's difficult to tell which one it is. They're always gate crashing, one or the other. All right, back in a second.
In the last week, our First Minister, Humza Yousaf, and his latest fling, slip of the tongue, Scotland's Net Zero Secretary, Mary McCallan, were in Dubai to attend the COP28 climate conference. Yes, It's that time of year again. Where am I? Sorry.
I'm trying to find your thing. Your
my what?
Your caption, but I can't find it.
Oh, my caption, I don't know. Well, it's that time of year again when Scotland's First Minister flies off on a taxpayer-funded jolly to the International Climate Conference, in which they have no role, in search of famous people to get photos and selfies with. This undignified precedent was, of course, set by Nicola Sturgeon at COP26 in Glasgow, and is now being continued by Humza Yousaf at COP28 in Dubai this year. So we ask ourselves, what has Humza achieved for Scotland while he's there? Well, what he managed to do was give away £2 million for urban communities in the Global South. Is that a thing, the Global South?
Yes.
I don't know. It takes the total cash pledged by the Scottish Government to address loss and damage from climate change to £10 million, but still no money for Brecon. Has anyone heard about any money actually?
It's not in the Global South, Mary.
Okay, what's it in the Scotland's North?
Yes, plenty of money for the Global South, but not for the Scotland North.
It's ridiculous. For loss and damage from climate change. So the people in Brecon have lost their homes, they've lost their businesses, and they're still waiting for money. And there's Humza down in Dubai, lording it around and giving away £10 million of Scottish money to people we don't even know down in the Global South, wherever that is. What else did he achieve? Well, he blasted Rishi Sunak's government as not serious about its responsibilities to the planet,
right, because
they approved the new North Sea licenses. So what about Grangemouth? Now, last week, the SNP were pretending that they were all upset and didn't know anything about it when Grangemouth said it was going to close or change to doing something else. They were all astounded that could possibly happen. But don't they see any links to, licenses in the oil and gas sector?
Oh,
And last week I had reported that 200,000 jobs have been lost in that sector in the last decade alone. Then we got to see, I don't know, Mark, have you got the photos of
yes, I put
Humza? So he seems to have a complete lack of awareness. So he tweeted out a picture of himself chatting with Ursula von der Leyen,
that is that one. Yes,
the president of the European Commission.
Yes.
Now, looking at this, it looks like he basically just walked up to her when she was having a wee tea break But according to him, he spoke to her about the need for countries to work together to tackle the climate emergency. What?
Yeah.
And she's just sitting there trying to have a wee cup of tea, and he comes over and said there's a great need for countries to... I mean, that's why they're all there, right?
Yes.
At COP28.
It's like, who are you? That's the thing. That's ridiculous.
He probably thinks he's the waiter.
Did she really need reminding by an inflated council leader walking by? I mean, it's like she'd forgotten what she was there for. Why am I at COP28? Oh, thanks, Humza, for telling me why I'm here. But even stranger was another encounter that he had with the very dodgy President Erdogan of Turkey. Again, it basically looked like he just walked up to the guy. The guy doesn't really know who he is. And he's trying to be polite. This is Erdogan being polite to Humza Yousaf. And Humza's all starstruck because he's actually getting to meet a real world leader, whether he's a pariah or not.
Yes.
So this Erdogan photo op, it looks basically Humza Yousaf is inserting himself into very sensitive territory. Diplomatically speaking, he doesn't belong doing this kind of thing.
It depends what doesn't belong mean. I mean, they've got a common ground on Gaza, of course. Right.
Yes, but I mean, it doesn't belong in terms of UK diplomacy and UK foreign policy. So one of his own SNP councillors, Rosal Salih, who had come to Scotland as a Kurdish refugee, she tweeted her disappointment and disgust with the First Minister for his meeting and the photos with the Turkish president. She said, "Our politicians and half of the population are imprisoned by him, and you shake his hand? I did not expect this from an FM that says he respects human rights."
Oh, there we go.
Now, Brian Wilson, who wrote the article that we showed in the Herald, the former MP, he pointed out that it seems odd for the head of a devolved government with no official standing at COP28 to use it as a venue.
Mark,
I'm here. Oh, no.
Okay. All right, we're back. Were we, Mark, were we frozen there for a second?
Yes, it went a little bit quiet. I can't hear Mary, but I can hear you, Mark.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay.
So just to kind of wrap up on this.
SNP spies were getting in our internet connection once more, but they will never... They will never get.
I think we'll have to use Starlink. We'll have to get Elon Musk, just like Ukraine.
But I've got this thing on stuck on here, right? Okay, okay, all right.
Well, now basically, just to wrap up, it can sometimes be a good idea for ministers and civil servants to go on overseas trips if they're going to beat the drum for Scotland and drum up investments and jobs. But we rarely hear of any of that these days, do we?
No.
So if Humza Yousaf and Mary McCallan are going to go off in these jobs,
Susan Aitken as well.
Yep. Can't they actually learn something about how Scotland's health or education might be improved, or anything in Scotland for that matter?
Oh well, that's a good point, isn't it? It's just, it's just I mean, considering cost of living crisis, all this type of stuff, these people going over and licking the boots, as it were, of these climate globalists is it's hard to take. It's
quite sickening for people.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It's really bad. And take a big entourage of people with them, and they think they're all important. But those photos are ridiculous. I mean, remember Sturgeon? She was there with Greta Thunberg as well, and it was like, who are you? And it's all this quest to get a better job, and I think in Humza's case, quest to become some kind of Middle East ambassador, perhaps. Yeah. Anyway. Thanks, a good report there, Mary. Things you can do right now to support the show. You can make a donation, which would be great. You can use the super thanks or the super chat in YouTube, which I didn't mention earlier. That's quite good. And also, you can make a donation to the Sack Matheson campaign here, which is, let's see, we've got here. Any donations come in while we were on show? Yes, a little bit there. So we have £11 to go on this to get to our target. Surely someone out there can help get us over their £11. Less, in fact, if you could count the change. All right. You can, of course, I've mentioned going to help the store, and you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube and tell your friends about us, or all of the above, which makes us happy. It's coming up. It's the moment you have all been waiting for. It is the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
Now,
Mark, Paul Halford keeps asking us to put the link up, please. I'm not exactly sure what link he's talking about.
The link, okay, link. Let me go see. I'll put a link here, right? Stick this on that thing and see what happens. Okay, right. Put it in the caption.
Famous last words.
Right, here we go. Okay, add that. Is that going to work? Where did it go?
Sorry, you do yours, right?
Right, there we go. So I'll keep that link up on just for a few seconds so you can get that while
Audrey Johnson says that she's sending us £12 if she does. Then
well, there you go. That's good.
Yay!
That is very great.
We might go over our target a little bit. That'd be great.
That will be good. Okay, let me
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, very good. So last week we heard the sad news that Alistair Darling had died. Darling had been notable for being leading part of the Better Together campaign. His most notable moment, of course, being to destroy Alex Salmond's bogus currency claims. But here's another one I found when I was doing some research.
One thing we can say with absolute certainty: when Scotland becomes independent, then in every single election we'll get the government that Scotland votes for. We can say that with absolute certainty. Every time Scotland goes into a general election, we have the risk of having people we didn't vote for ruling over us.
When it comes to getting governments you didn't vote for, I didn't vote for him, but I'm stuck with him. I just accept that's what happens in a democracy.
Alex Salmond's face here. It's like, what? Someone's actually fighting me back. And with basic stuff, but nonetheless, Salmond did pay tribute to Darling. He was a formidable campaigner for Better Together. We had some pretty intense debates, of course, but I can honestly say about Alistair that out with those debates, we never exchanged a crossword because Alistair was an extremely courteous man. It should be noted that Darling's leading, how do we say that? Darling being in the forefront of the campaign came at some considerable cost. He says there were people camping out. Someone said, close to him said, there were people camping out on his roof, threatening his children, shouting at him in the street. For many months afterwards, people would still boo or spit at him in the street when he went out to get his paper. And, so...
Yeah,
it came at some cost, and part of this cost is idiot nationalists like all Under One Braincell banner, who wrote. Let me see, we've got this thing here. I've got see this one here. Yes, we've got. Yeah, he said. I've got the tweet. This is the thing up here. He said, "Darling lapdog of London rule, who fronted the 2014 campaign to keep the people of Scotland in poverty. Good riddance to this treacherous man." So I think that's just
very disrespectful.
Not absolutely not necessary. Scottish Labour weighed in and said this is a disgusting tweet from an organisation that has regularly hosted senior SNP figures at its marches. Not only should they delete and apologise for this vile message, but the SNP should sever ties with these ghouls permanently. And I think I have to agree with that. And also there was, but that wasn't all, Wings Over Scotland did one as well, and I seem to have lost part of it. But basically he said, in response to Darling saying there wouldn't be another referendum in his lifetime, they said, fair play to him. He said one true thing, which, might be good for a playground insult, but highly inappropriate when it comes to someone's death. Even an opponent is they never seem to miss an opportunity to keep their mouths shut. So let's give it to Mary, what were you going to say?
No, sorry.
Oh,
no,
okay.
No.
Let's give, for my Zoomer, I want to do it for the Under One Braincell for their crass insensitivity and Zoomerism.
Okay.
Right. Okay. That would seem a bit
somber.
Yeah, somber.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, it's going to be Mary.
Oh. Well, this might give you all a good laugh after that sombre one. My Zoomer of the week is Shirley-Anne Somerville, Scotland's Social Justice Secretary, for saying Holyrood would be able to go further on welfare if it severed links with the rest of the UK, and it could transform lives by boosting benefits in an independent Scotland. So we're all going to get higher benefits, people. She insisted by going it alone, an independent Scotland could ensure everyone had a decent standard of living. It makes you kind of wonder, why aren't they doing that now?
Well, of course, that is a big question, isn't it?
But she said it's because, are you ready for it? It's got the magic word in there. She said it is only with the full powers of independence that we could use the full fiscal and economic levers to tackle poverty in Scotland. If only we had the levers. So this was... her comments.
You've gone quiet again, Mary.
They've lost us. Lost us again for a few seconds.
Are we back yet, Mark?
You're just back now, yeah.
Right.
You heard nothing.
My goodness.
Yes.
We were talking about Shirley-Anne Somerville. Can you hear me now, Mark?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
And she's complaining that they don't have the economic levers to tackle poverty in Scotland. It's ahead of more of their stupid papers that they keep putting out all the time about independence.
Did you not say they were going to double the pension?
Did she?
I
didn't even read that.
Oh, they said that before, haven't they? They keep lying that the UK pension is lower than the rest of the world's pensions, and then saying we're going to double it anyway. And you just like anyone who knows anything about it, other than a grifter who wants freebies, basically is like, how are you going to be able to possibly afford that? You've got an aging economy here, and there's not enough young people to be able to pay for anything. First thing young people want to do is go somewhere else because they can make more money there, and that means no taxes to spend on old folk. Sadly,
I don't know how the hell she thinks Scotland could possibly afford it, because the spending on public services for the 12 months to March 2023 was £19.1 billion more than it raised in tax. So first they'd have to cover that £19 billion just to stay exactly where they are. And then they'd have to raise the money for the extra benefits. So how the hell that would happen, I don't know. And then people are criticising her, saying, well, how, you failed to use the extensive welfare powers that you've already been given. They're always giving the powers back to the UK because they're not able to deal with them. I mean, didn't they hire like 30,000 extra staff or something for Dundee for the welfare thing or something like that? And they're still not doing all the benefits that they're supposed to be doing.
No.
So... anyway, I just think for being so ridiculous in claiming that everyone's going to have, a great standard of living and that we're going to be boosting all the benefits.
It's the thing, they're blaming Westminster on one side, and the other side is saying, we can give you all this stuff that actually has been paid for by Westminster.
So basically, if Shirley-Anne Somerville focused her attention on solving the current issues within Social Security Scotland and using the welfare powers that she already has, then Scotland would be a bit better off anyway.
Well, perhaps, a little bit, perhaps. Okay, Mark, you're going to be up next. Right, who have you got for us today?
Patrick Harvie.
Oh, well,
one of the regulars.
Just for being Patrick Harvie.
I'm doing Patrick Harvie because he was on a TV show, news programme, and they had a video message from one of the leading people in the energy sector, and they were talking about the nuclear hubs that Scotland refused to have. Mm-hmm. And the expert was saying how much it was going to cost Scotland by not having this, by not having nuclear energy, how many jobs it was going to cost, losing the expertise that Scotland has because it will leave. It was quite a damning report on the Scottish government, and Harvie sat there on his table smirking the whole way through. And when the presenter turned to Harvie and said, "Well, what do you think of that, Harvie? What do you think?" He just said, "I don't care. basically said, I don't care. I don't care if it costs us jobs. I don't care if it costs us. We need to save the planet. Blah blah blah. His usual nonsense, and it was just a. He wouldn't come out with any kind of reasoning as to why we can't use nuclear, because it is it is safe. He came up with this quite nonsense about it not being safe, and he didn't come up with any kind of facts. He didn't come up with any kind of counter to it. He just smirked and sat there as if to say, and his whole attitude was to say, I don't care.
Yeah, well, it's a belief-based organisation, and unfortunately, facts are intruding into their worldview. First fact being that this whole green thing costs a lot of money, and second, that it doesn't actually cover our energy needs. So we have to go back to nuclear. I don't know if you know the story behind why nuclear is so demonised, hugely demonised by the fossil fuel industry itself, and the fossil fuel industry is actually one of the main benefactors of renewable energy, because what do you have to use when windmills don't turn? Gas.
Yeah.
So that's why BP and all these companies are like, oh yeah, we love renewables, because the thing that will put them out of business once and for all is nuclear energy.
Yeah.
So that's what they've been doing. Years, decades of fear mongering and so on, and supporting all these causes against all this.
Well, this guy is the energy minister who nobody voted for.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody voted for him. He's got a £100,000 job where he gets, he gets all these benefits, and nobody voted for him. And he's costing jobs, money, expertise, all from Scotland, and he doesn't care a jot about them.
No, doesn't care. It's a religion, really, and that's the issue with it. Okay, right, very good. Three candidates. Mine was all Under One Braincell for doing Alistair Darling. Mary's was Shirley-Anne Somerville for benefits. It's so
fantasy economics.
Yes, and Mark's for Patrick Harvie. But I'm going to give it to you, Mark.
Yeah, I agree.
I think basically it's a kind of emperor's new clothes type situation. You've got these people who believe that they're great. They've got all this trappings of ministerial office and so on, based on this idea of renewable energy, and they're so stuck in their own ways that they won't actually do the main one as well. And times change around them. This was interesting because we have this COP28. One of the very interesting things, this is the article from the New York Times, 22 countries pledged to triple nuclear capacity and push to cut fossil fuels.
Good.
And not just that. I mean, you look at France, for example, and they didn't care about it, and they're rolling in energy. We should all be rolling in energy in this day and age.
Well, our energy providers are French, right?
Yeah, Germany's reversed their position on it, and they're going back to nuclear because of what's happened. So, and the UK are trying to build, I think it's one hub that they're going to build now in England. They were going to build one in Scotland, but to get around that, they are getting the councils to block planning permission.
Yeah, it's sick. It's not acceptable at all. A worthy winner there, Patrick Harvie. You are the Zoomer of the week. Well, thank you all for being on. Well, thank you, Audrey.
I think it was the other Mark, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Well done, both Marks.
Right. Let's have a quick look at this and see if we're over the target. Yes, we are over the target. Indeed, we have made it live update. £20,023 and 90 pence.
Not 20,000, 2,000.
Sorry, I can't even read a number.
Thank you very much.
Right,
everybody.
Okay, so 2,000, yes, that's good enough. So we'll get Mary on the phone tomorrow, calling up. We want these billboards, and see if we can get them up as soon as possible. I'll leave you with the thought of the week, which is, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Okay, I got that off of a WeQuote website. Mm-hmm. We are so happy to have you all with us on Scotland's #1 politics chat. This is the second last show of the year. Next year's will be the last show.
Next week will be the last.
Week, right? Keep me right. Next week's on December 13th will be the last show, and we'll be taking a break until January the 10th. Please introduce the show to a friend. You can watch them all on YouTube. Please give a like and subscribe if you can. Thank you. A huge thank you to Mark Zegveldt for being with us as co-host.
Been a pleasure.
And for, of course, Mary for doing all the comments.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks for getting us over the target.
Yes,
Yay.
yeah, thank you. And thank you for Target for your support. And we'll see you all again next week. All right, take care.
Good evening.
Good night.